Yo! What's up, everybody? Welcome. It's Orange Bloods live on a Thursday. I think that's what day it is. I'm Jeff Ketchum. Do us a solid, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, notifications, that whole thing, and jump into the Specs chat. We're going to be talking Texas football recruiting. We're waiting for Lamar Brown, five-star kind of athlete. He's a defensive lineman, but it feels like he can play pretty much everywhere. He is making his announcement at 12:15. So we're about 15 minutes away. The Longhorns desperately going after Lamar Brown, but expected to be an LSU Texas A&M battle. Obviously, this is a day where other announcements are going to take place. So, it's kind of a recruiting conversation. If you want to jump in, get your super chats in. We also have to talk about comments that Oklahoma general manager Jim Nagy made yesterday. I got wind of those today. Kind of mind-blowing, really. And they're comments that I've said in the past that I'm fascinated that he kind of repeated things that I've said. I don't know that I ever thought that they would be just said transparently out loud. We'll get to those in a second. Again, we're waiting for the announcement of Lamar Brown, big-time defensive line prospect, athlete out of Baton Rouge, a guy that I think Texas still wants to be in with Lamar Brown. And I think Texas views Lamar Brown as a guy whose recruitment might not be over with until November or December. It'll be interesting to see, really, with every kid that announces moving forward, how much of a Felix Ojo level deal are we going to see? Are guys going to make announcements and say, I signed my contract? At which point, maybe you need to tell us if there's a buyout? Like, these are questions that we haven't asked before. And so with the Felix Ojo thing having just literally just happened. And we had a meeting. It was me, it was Anwar, Alex, Sonny, Cody. Literally in the last hour, we were talking about SEC Media Days next week. And I said, guys, on Monday, just be prepared. Everything that's going to be asked of Sankey, I think, is going to be related to everything post-settlement. The money, how schools are using it, how the SEC watchdog. It's just going to be a topic that I think is going to be explored nonstop. Yesterday, Mike Gundy made the announcement at Big 12 Media Days that players need to be considered employees. It's a huge thing that Mike Gundy said that. I think because Mike Gundy said it, it's not going to get the attention that it deserves. This is a big deal, this idea of the players being employees. It is the last thing. These schools are trying to avoid this at all costs. Mike Gundy's right. This thing does eventually have to end with collective bargaining and a union and an agreement. And until that, it's going to be kind of wild, wild west. But you can't have a collective bargaining agreement until they're employees. And I guarantee you the school president at Oklahoma State got a phone call from somebody today that said, get your dude in line. What is he doing? It's, these are just things that the schools do not want their own employees saying out loud. Because that means they have to get benefits. There's a lot that goes into all of this. And again, I'm sure if Steve Sarkisian shows up next Tuesday and says all of his players should have benefits and there should be a collective bargaining agreement and it's not even a real sport until that happens, it'd be a big deal. Jay Lee jumping in to the super chat, $5 in celebration of NCAAF 26 release. You should pull up the Texas player ratings list on an AZ Sports and give thoughts. Hill is highest overall at 95. Jay, I just don't care. I know I should. I know it's popular. I do. I know that if I did that, it might be the video that gets me the most amount of views. I don't care. I'm going to be me. I haven't played NCAA college football since I lived in an apartment. So I think it might have been 2003, 2004. I can remember I played with Chance Mock a lot. Chance and I used to we thought it was pretty cool. Or I would just create my own team based out of Boise or somewhere in Idaho or Montana. And then that's what I would do. I would recruit in those states. But I haven't played in 20 years, so I can't. And if I looked at the ratings, I would get upset about something that I just don't think matters. So forgive me. But thank you for the $5 super chat. And I hope all of you that care have a great time. Play your game. Have a good time. While we wait for Brown to make his announcement. So I think it's really interesting. While we wait for Lamar Brown to make his announcement, it's almost like you have to bone up on, well, what are the NIL rules? What are the high school rules in Louisiana? Because what Felix Ojo just did, Felix Ojo couldn't have done 12 months ago. But all of these kids are living in states where the state laws are constantly changing. Now, Felix Ojo, his agent claims they signed the deal. And previously in the state of Texas, that would have rendered him ineligible. So, whatever Lamar Brown does today, is he off the grid? Is he signed, sealed, and delivered? Or is he a guy that the schools will still be recruiting into November, December? I think Texas feels like a couple of things. They think their best chance to land a Lamar Brown will be later in the year. They need to get him back on campus. There was a false report, if we're being completely honest, that he was going to come back right after he had visited in June. He was going to come back like that next week. It was reported, I think, that was going to happen. Now, maybe I'm wrong. It was posted on Orange Bloods, and maybe somebody incorrectly reported the report. It could happen. It's happened before. But we checked up on it, and he was like, well, I might, and then he didn't. And there had been a report that he was. At least that's the way it had been passed along to me. That needed to happen. They need to get him on campus again. They were never going to get him on campus once, I don't think. I mean, shit, it's 2025. You offer a big enough deal. I just think part of what Texas is dealing with is I think that they are very conscientious about, they don't know exactly what's available from a finances standpoint right now. It will look completely different in December. There will be guys that maybe go pro, maybe guys they thought would go pro and they don't. For instance, let's say, I won't even speak it into existence. Let's just say Anthony Hill, though, decided to come back for another year. He's Cedric Benson. He's Derek Johnson. He's Roy Williams. He's Ricky Williams, right? I'm decided I want to come back. I want to play for a national championship or another national championship, and I'm going to go pro. Or, I'm going to stay and play one more year. I mean, that's like $2 million that Texas would not right now be planning on needing to allocate or to outsource an NIL with a corporate sponsor. They're not thinking that right now. They're thinking, man, Anthony Hill's coming off the books. But if Anthony Hill didn't come off the books, Anthony Hill's got to get paid. And that's a lot of money. And you won't know until you know. Because, he could tell guys right now, oh, I'm going pro or I'm not going pro. We see this all the time, and guys change their minds. It happens all the time. Oh, I'm not going pro. And then they go pro. So I have my sources at Texas that are like, look, we're not going to completely know what's what. We have guys that we're targeting. I think you see it with a Richard Wesley. I think the way they've approached Felix Ojo, there's a limit. There's a limit. There's a limit to what they would be willing to do for a guy that's not going to play next year. I think Lamar Brown's an interesting guy. Does he absolutely come in and play next year if you're for Texas? Maybe. But if you look at the depth chart, Texas in 2026 at the defensive tackle position won't be Texas of the defensive tackle position going into 2025 5 months ago. Texas has gone out of its way. They have, right now, Texas has 10 defensive tackles on the roster. They'll lose 2. Cole Brevard, Travis Shaw, they're seniors, they'll be gone. Hero Kanu, Lavon Johnson, juniors, they're draft eligible, but nobody's expecting that they would go pro. But we'll leave it under consideration that it's possible. But you expect Kanu and Johnson and Alex January and Murad Watson, who told his coach at Syracuse he was making $1 million at Texas, and Melvin Hills and Myra Charles and Josiah Sharma and Justice Terry. 8 of those guys coming back. They've got Dylan Berryman. They've got Vodney Cleveland. They've got Corey Wells already coming in. So they're in double digits. Now, Lamar Brown might be the best of the bunch, but he might not be. It might be that he needs a year to acclimate himself. And that is, I think, one of the question marks that is going to constantly be asked. If you're going to make the investments in the super blue chip prospects, the best of the best of the best, and look, Texas has 3 right now, unanimous. Every service rates them as a national top 60 prospect. You want to get like 6, 7 of those guys in every class, which is what Texas has done in each of the last 3 years. But deciding who you go get is a really interesting conversation piece. You know, we will look at a guy like Jamarian Carlton when he makes his decision. That is not a position where Texas is desperate at. If you're Texas and you were going to allocate a significant sum of money, is that the position to allocate it to? If you aren't absolutely getting a guy who's coming in and playing day one, and I don't know that I look at Jamarian Carlton and think that guy's playing in 2026. And I have him rated as a national top 50 prospect. That doesn't mean I think he's a day one instant contributor. I think it's really important. Let's think back last year while we wait for Lamar Brown's announcement to come in the next couple of minutes. Who were the freshmen, right? Texas signed a top 5 class. I don't think Texas fans, I don't know that there's enough consideration right now from Texas fans day in and day out. Because I deal with this as a soccer fan. My team, Liverpool, won championship in England. But you see this with Arsenal, you see this with Man City, you see this with top clubs, right? They want to get better every year. Every year, the fans are obsessed. How do you improve your team? But you get your team to a certain level, and it's hard to make improvements on the guys that you have. But that's the goal. That's the quest. The only way you get better is if you find a way to cheat the margins. If this were baseball and say, oh, my God, we can't win the World Series, we got to find a way to get better. Well, how do we find a way to get better? Well, we got to find a way. Our shortstop's got to hit 295 instead of 275. And you need these fine margins to work into your advantage in college football. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough to find guys in recruiting, not that will be NFL players, not guys that will be eventual contributors. It's harder at Texas and Georgia and Ohio State to find guys that are going to come in and play right away. Let's look at the true sophomores on the roster right now. Let's go one by one. How many of them actually played a big role last year? Jarrett Gibson. Did he have a big role? Nope. Not really. By the end, couldn't even get on the field. Ryan Wingo. Key backup. Didn't start. That's not who he was. Had one of the better freshman seasons in the history of freshman wide receivers at Texas. Statistically. Played like a 90-game schedule, but statistically, one of the better receiving yards, that kind of thing, right? But not a starter. Brandon Baker, barely played. Colin Simmons, yes. Put him on the yes pile. Alex January. Ty Anthony Smith. Played a little bit, situationally. Yeah, by end of the season, he was getting on the field, but you wouldn't say he was a heavy contributor. Kobe Black. Nope. Jordan Johnson-Rebel. Nope. Xavier Filsaime. Nope. We're done. That was it. We're done with the exercise. The answer to the question is Texas signed a national top 3 recruiting class 2 years ago. Remember that one? Colin Simmons, Ryan Wingo, that's it. And only one of them was a starter. Now, next year, in 2026, this will be Texas, I think, on paper, their best year to win a national championship since Steve Sarkisian has been here. That's the level. Colin Simmons and Ryan Wingo wasn't even really good enough to start. In order to be a freshman and start at Texas now, those are the levels you have to be good. Those are the levels. Otherwise, you're redshirting or you're just getting some situational playing time. You're Ty Anthony Smith. Maybe by the end of the year, you're playing a little bit. Maybe you're Kobe Black, but maybe by the end of the year, you're getting a little bit of playing time. You're taking a little bit of Gavin Holmes at snaps. The levels to play at Texas are so high. That's where the roster is. It's Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama levels. So when we look at the schedule, when we look at positions, where do we think guys can play right away at Texas next year as freshmen? Where if you were going to give guys a bunch of money because they can help next year, not 2027, not 2028, because again, that is when I think Lamar Brown's going to be a guy that costs $2 million a year. I don't know at Texas that guy plays right away. He might. I definitely don't know that he starts. They're paying Murad Watson $1 million to start. They brought Hero Canoe and Lavon Johnson, those guys in. Justice Terry is brought here to start. Texas has dudes. Not every freshman defensive tackle is going to show up and play 200, 300, 400 snaps. So these are wealthy people problems. But if you're Texas, one of the new conversations that you're having to have that you've never had before is, are we sure we want to take this 5-star? Steve Sarkisian would shank a family member to get Lamar Brown. He loves him. I think they think Lamar Brown is one of the top 5 players in the country. So Steve Sarkisian might argue with me and go, catch the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. We get Lamar Brown, that dude's starting day. He might be Tommy Harris. Maybe. Those guys don't grow on trees. Maybe he's Colin Simmons. Maybe. Or you have Justice Terry, you have Murad Watson, you have Alex January, you have these other transfers. Maybe it's not crystal clear that you start right away, right? Do you want to put $2 million potentially of your revenue share money into a player that's not going to play a lot? And I think that there are people at Texas, I think Steve Sarkisian is like, yes, I want this guy. But I think there are people inside the program, I've talked to them who've said, I don't know, man. They did it with Ojo. Steve Sarkisian would have taken Ojo on a week ago, no questions asked. Yes. He didn't get him. Felix Ojo is not going to help 2026. He might not have helped in 2027. So I think this is really interesting because you're watching Texas A&M doesn't have as much money allocated to its current roster as Texas by as much as $10 million or more. I think that's the case with most of the rosters in college football. So Texas got to be a little bit more choosy, I think, about they're still going to go after their 5 or 6 guys, but where do you do it? It's a great question. And I think it gets to be harder and harder when you look at the Texas roster right now. I'm looking at it right now. If Arch Manning comes back, it's not at quarterback. If you look at running back, they got 6 guys on the roster right now. None of them are scheduled to leave. Wisner, Gibson, Baxter, Clark, Simon, Stewart, all coming back unless someone goes in the portal. But at least the majority of main guys coming back. Wide receivers, they got 10 on the roster right now. Only DeAndre Moore is an upperclassman. He might go pro, but you're still returning 9 guys next year, including French, Lockett, McCutcheon, and Terry. Offensive line, this is where I think we know they need some injections, and that's where John Turntine helps. I think defensive end, they've got Richard Wesley. They answered that question. Could you afford Lamar Brown and Richard Wesley if you're Texas from a revenue share? These are questions that the answer might be yes, but they've never been asked before. Linebacker, this is the one where I think you could make a case that Texas needs to invest. If they were going to spend Lamar Brown money anywhere, you might make a case that it's at linebacker. You lose Trey Moore and Anthony Hill off this year's roster, assuming Hill goes pro after this season. And then next year you lose LaFau and Spence. So After 2027, you're left with Ty Anthony Smith, Bo Barnes, and John Cunningham. That's it. That's it. Other than if you go into the portal, but based on what's on the current roster, there needs to be an injection of high level. And it looks like right now the pick is in. Lamar Brown picks LSU. I think that's what everybody thinks was going to happen. I think for Texas A&M, you're fine. I think if you're Texas, you're fine. It's a big win for LSU. That's one they had to have. I think if you're Texas and you're Texas A&M and you look at their depth charts, I think they're good. I think that there are other areas. It's kind of what we're talking about right now. I think a guy like the Atkins sit out of Georgia at linebacker, that guy's so much more important than Lamar Brown. Not from a value standpoint, right? Because we will always talk about that a quarterback or an edge guy, although defensive tackles are super valuable. And a defensive tackle in general is light years more valuable than a linebacker. But when you look at program needs, Texas has significantly stabilized, even with no help from this recruiting class at all. Their defensive tackle situation going into next year is really good. Really good. I mean, I can't stress it enough. Next year, they'll go into the defensive tackle class. Hero Kanu, Lavon Johnson, two guys that have already played a lot of Power 5 football. January, Watson, Hills, Charles, Sharma, Terry. Their problem won't be numbers of guys. They need some guys to develop. They need Justice Terry to be that dude. They need Murad Watson to continue his development. They need Alex January to come along. But like they got numbers. Linebacker, not so much. And then you look at DB, you look at corner and safety. They're pretty loaded at both of those positions. I think tight end and linebacker are the two that you would say, is there an elite level talent? I think running back too. I don't think they have an elite running back, but they're not short for numbers. And really, if you look at the tight end position, they got 5 guys. 6 of injuries comes back. Vivek says we need to flip Rosenborough or Krempfen from A&M. No, not really. I mean, those guys aren't super blue chips. They're just not. They are in that pile of prospects that are going to fail 70 to 80% of the time at best. They don't need to do anything. They don't. There's no difference in the historical success track record of guys like those two than the guys that UTSA will sign. Like really, a success percentage point in the single digits. So, and I think, I feel like a lot of times from an analytics standpoint, and I want to get back to what Jim Nagy said in a second, because I want to do the second. We've talked about, but we've talked about Lamar Brown. Congratulations, LSU, tremendous player. Again, I think Texas and Texas A&M are fine. It's a bigger loss for A&M than Texas because I think they came closest. I think if they're Texas, as long as that guy hasn't signed, they'll continue with that guy all the way till signing day. They love Lamar Brown. They want to get him on campus again, and then if they can get that guy back in on campus, they got a chance. If they don't, they won't. Oscar with a $9.99 Truth Serum question. I haven't even read the question yet, so here I go. Truth Serum time, Catch. Do you think we'll be here in December? Joking once again about how worried we were in July and praising Sark for a top 5 class once again. Yeah, I do. For sure. For sure. The thing that I don't know, Oscar, is I think they might be prepared. So I'm caught in between a couple of different thoughts. There's a good chance, and we'll see what Sankey says at SEC Media Days on Monday about this. I'm sure he'll be asked. But if the SEC raises the scholarship limits to 105, like the Big Ten has, then Texas has to add scholarships. And they won't all be 20. Some of those guys will come in from the walk-on program. Some of these will be special teams guys. We've already seen Texas go heavy in special teams. But in a world where Texas is building up to 105, they might take 40 incoming dudes next year. How many of those guys are high school guys? I don't know. Like Texas is creeping up to 20. If 3-4 years ago, if I said Sark was going to have to, that the rules were going to change and he had to take 45 incoming players, I think almost 40 of them would have come from high school. But I think he's changing. And I think the people around him are changing. I think one of the things that Texas people in the program are learning that they like a lot, guarantee on the boxes, man. As we go further and further into this, maybe it's not so much my math where it's like, you know, these guys come with such a huge success rate or such a failure rate that they're either worth or not worth what you're investing in. Maybe you got to spend enough money that's been wasted before, you know, we had this conference. We don't know if Brandon Baker is going to be good yet. We hope, right? Texas hopes. We all hope. I hope every guy succeeds. But that guy goes into year 2 and he'll have made reportedly well over $1 million. But we don't know if he's any good yet. We don't know if at the end of the year, we have no idea at the end of the Ohio State game, if he starts at right tackle. We have no idea after the first game of this season if we're going to think, well, that was $1.5 million well spent. There are people behind the scenes that look at that type of money now and they go, well, let's leave no doubt. Spend what we're spending, but let's not have dead money. It's a very NFL term. If you're a Cowboys fan, you're definitely familiar with it. How much dead money do you have on your roster? Mm-hmm. Well, Texas has some dead money. And I think there are people behind the scenes that look at a Lamar Brown and they go, I'd rather spend that money in the portal and get somebody who's going to help out next year's team. And if he goes, next year we'll take $2 million and we'll do it again. But we want somebody where every time we spend $1, we're getting something back. And I do think that we don't think of recruiting like that at all. Because if we did, we'd look back at last year's recruiting class. Let's look at the redshirt freshmen, or the guys that didn't play a lot. Hey, man, Ryan Wingo. If Ryan Wingo were a prospect this year and Texas had just given him $1.5 million, and that's what he'd made last year. Well, we have watched Ryan Wingo as a true freshman and been like, Ryan Wingo's a raging success. This money thing changes everything. It really does. And teams aren't going to be able to stockpile the volume of players. I mentioned this on the show yesterday. I think it's one of the most important things that we've said this week. I think it's imperative that everybody watching the show understands this. College football has peaked in terms of the highest quality possible team that can be built. That was Georgia and Alabama 5 years ago. In fact, I don't have it in front of me. I will. I hate when I randomly think of a content piece and something inside of it that I want to reference. And then I don't have it right in front of me that I can't, but I'm going to find it. I'll find it. I'll get Tyler to make a graphic. We'll update it. We'll put it up on Twitter. The last Bama team to win a national championship had 40 consensus super blue chips on it. 5 years later, Alabama has 20. Georgia and Alabama were both in the 40s. Georgia's down to 25. And that's without these rules that have kicked in that are just going to make it much, much harder to collect five-star talent the way schools used to. And I really am starting. I'm very quickly. I'm not there yet. I think the top 6 to 10 guys that you sign in your recruiting class are the ones that matter. I think the depth 11 through 20 won't be what it once was, but I think that's okay because it's what I've been trying to teach everybody for the last 20 years. is it's 11 through 20 that everybody gets hyped up about, that there is no reason to be hyped. You're like, oh, we signed 20 guys off the Rivals 250. Okay, well, just so you know, that guy that's ranked number 200 on the Rivals 250, he's not any different than number 750. And the greatest trick that the devil ever played was when Kaiser Sose convinced all of you that some basic-ass 4-star was worth something, that he was valuable, that it was a reason for you to throw a parade. I did it. I'm sorry. I have a hard time sleeping at night knowing that I've done this to the world for decades. For decades, I was one of those guys that was like, Texas 4-star running back. Yeah. But I accumulated enough data over the years that I did the thing that nobody else has done. I went through all my data, every single name, and I've sorted through it. And I've tracked the successes at varying degrees of levels. Did you get drafted? Did you play in the NFL? Were you an All-American? Were you a first-round pick? Did you go on day one? I have more of this historical data in my brain that I'm actually proud of. It's not doing anything for me. I get to do a show where I'm really dialed into the topic that I'm talking about. But it may be too nerdy for you, and it's way too nerdy for the mainstream. So it's not really helping me, but I am a master of this discussion. The 11 through 20 guy is the guy that we hype up in the industry because we want you to get excited, because we want you to believe that those guys are the ones that win championships, and they're the ones that have the biggest bust rates. They're the ones that for years, when Texas fans or people that played against Texas, I had someone do this earlier today. It was like, I guarantee you, if you look at the Texas roster from a decade ago, it was as good as it is now. I think I blocked that guy on Twitter. Like sometimes, I did this a couple times today on Twitter. I just got to block stupidity. I tried to argue with it. I tried to debate it. And then it's always like, oh, you have chips on your belly at night in your bed. Okay. Boom. Roasted. Okay. Is that, it's like, that's what you do? That comes into your head? I just block people. I can't take the stupidity, but it's not the same. And ATX Bakes with another super chat, $4.99. This one's interesting. Texas could land 25 5-stars, spend $100 million, be ranked number 1 from stem to stern, and there still be Texas fans saying Sark isn't doing enough. I'm trying to figure out. I don't think Texas fans are bitching as much as the silent majority, or the not the silent majority, the vocal minority would have you believe. I get a lot more people on Orange Bloods who are complaining about the complainers than I actually see complaining. Now, I'm not saying I don't see complaining, because I've had a few people on Orange Bloods even today who are like, oh, the sky is falling. There's one guy who was a poster who I like, who was making the point on Orange Bloods that was the opposite of what I just said. He was like, it'll be in the future the guys that you take from 11 through 30 that will decide how good your recruiting class is. And I was like, well, that's fucking stupid. Excuse my language. I said, explain it to me. Explain it to me. Because that's literally not true. Not unless 11 through 30 is a bunch of portal guys. Your guys at the high school level, they're your 11 through 30 guys. Those are the least valuable. And it's important that Texas, I think, knows that. And I think they do. I get the sense that Texas is kind of evolving to we're going to go out. We're going to make sure we get our big dogs when we may not go volume because we're starting to learn where the risks are and we don't want to take them. We can go spend that money in the portal if we have to. And they have, and they will. See defensive tackle. They ain't scared. Jesus Christ, they went and found Murad Watson. Kudos to the staff on that. I feel like Sark gave a directive and said, look, go find the best sophomore who played last year at defensive tackle in a power conference, and let's just go buy him. And we can't buy him, go to the next one. Go down the list. I want a sophomore who starts. We'll pay him $1 million. Had to have played. They were like, okay, we'll go look. They came back. Murad Watson, Syracuse. Check out the film, coach. Fits the profile. That's what they did. They went after a different type of. If you're looking at what Texas is doing in the portal, Sark's evolving. It's my favorite thing about Sark. Sark makes mistakes and then evolves. He gets rid of bad coaches after a year. We all knew when he made the wide receiver hire that he made coming out. Andre Coleman. What the fuck is that about? He got a year, done, gone. He ain't still here. And Sark does a good job of evolving. How they evolve this year will be interesting. How do they evolve from 2024 to 2025? Guys that they started to take in the portal were much younger. Much younger. They have gone from let's get a bunch of grad seniors and get them off the roster to Hero Kanu, Lavon Johnson, Murad Watson all have multiple years of eligibility coming back at defensive tackle. Brad Spence, multiple years of eligibility coming in at linebacker. Jack Hendricks, multiple years of eligibility at tight end. Same thing with Emmett Mosley, 3 years of eligibility remaining. That is a wildly different strategy. And one of the things that it did, you can't lose sight of, this is we don't talk about it enough. It's very nerdy. But in doing that, let's go one by one. You take Emmett Mosley at wide receiver, who's a true sophomore. You just took a guy that jumped in front of Jamie French, Khalil Lockett, Dalen McCutcheon, and Michael Terry. It's usually not something that you volunteer to do. You took Murad Watson. He's a sophomore. You're paying him a lot to come in. That is blocking Justice Terry, Josiah Sharms, Myron Charles, all of them. Maybe even Alex January. That's new. Brad Spence comes in. That might block Bo Barnes or John Cunningham or Ty Anthony Smith. You bring in, you can sell to recruits. Well, hey, I'm going to bring in these grad seniors. But, if you're ready to play, then they're going to play in front of you. If you're not ready to play, then we have them, and then they'll be gone, and then you'll play. That's been, I think, what they've wanted to tell recruits. Whoa. Yes. They're very much like Eddie Murphy when Eddie Murphy got caught cheating. He's like, whoa. Yes, I did that. Yes, I did. But I love you. It's a little bit like that. Because we've had wide receivers in the last year. I tell you, we talked to a wide receivers coach who coaches wide receivers and is trainers for all of these guys, right? And he's like, I'm not going to tell any of my guys to go to Texas because Texas will just take a transfer guy and cut in line and block his development. Texas got asked about that last year. And they would say, well, you keep taking A.D. Mitchell. You keep on taking, Matthew Golden. You keep on taking Isaiah Bond. And they're like, well, yeah, because our guys that came in weren't ready to play. You're going to be ready to play, right? Because if not, those guys will come in and be gone in a year. And that has been true every year so far. Texas's transfers come in, they play a year, they go. These guys they were bringing in this year all have multiple years of eligibility remaining. It's a different profile. Texas is evolving in the transfer. And I think it'll be interesting to see what they do when they evolve this year. What it looks like, I don't know. It really is. We're in real time. What are they going to know in December that they don't know now? That's what we're kind of waiting to see. Sailor Joe says, coach, or catch. I just called myself coach. Ojo buzz shifted post-tech commit. Fans now see him as mediocre. Are fans jaded or expectations high? Observing the rapid shifts in opinion, what are your thoughts? Keep up the great work. Oh, Sailor Joe. I think it shifted before. Sorry. I think it shifted the week before in the Rivals camp because he got pistol whipped by everybody. Everybody got some of Felix Ojo. They posterized him. They posterized him so bad the next day he went on social media and was like, hey, Mom always said there'd be bad days like this, but I'll come back stronger from it. Like, he acknowledged it. It was so bad, he acknowledged it publicly. So there were fans who were like, he sucks. Now, my position on Ojo as the first person in the industry to call him a 5-star. Now, look, you might hear that now and say, well, gosh, that just means you're the first person to be an asshole and be wrong. Maybe. That could be one of the new faces on our thumbnails. That's my maybe face. Maybe. He was always a multi-year project. He's very Trevor Goosby-ish in that he needs a year to go in to the lab and work and not be worried about for a year. And then the hope is that as a redshirt freshman, he comes in, he's like ready to get on the 2 deep, ready to play. That's what Trevor Goosby did. By year 3, Trevor Goosby, I think, is going to be an all-SEC player. That is, I think, the Trevor Goosby I think that is the Felix Ojo profile in a best case world. It's different going to Tech. I don't know what their offensive line situation is. Are they going to throw him on the field as a freshman? Because by God, you have to play a guy that you're paying that much money? I don't know. But I think Texas fans' opinions started to change the week of the Rivals camp. He was so bad that a number of fans were like, I don't want him. Use that money elsewhere. And I think more than anything else, even the guys that supported him said, well, that guy's not playing next year. And I was like, well, yeah, no shit. He's not playing next year. Duh. Not all 5-stars do. They're not all Kelvin Banks. They're not all Colin Simmons. Those guys are the guys that should be 6-stars. It's that mythical thing. OU fans like to think that I make up stuff. Like, they're like, super blue chip doesn't exist. You just made that up. It's like, well, no, I made up a term for a thing that does exist. It is a 5-star or a high 4-star. It's a thing. It's a real thing. Combined together, they make what I labeled them. But like, it's not like even a unicorn is a thing. Like if you look it up in the dictionary, it might not exist, but it's a thing. It's in the dictionary. I can type it into Google right now. I'm not going to do it, but you can. Anyway, Sailor Joe, thanks for the $10. Sailor, I just think that there's a lot of conversation about this. Where we are in recruiting right now is a never before live experiment. Hey, we've got $2 million next year. How should we spend it? Everybody's got a different, it's such a subjective question. Sharon 45 says, what's the most devastated you've seen Texas fans over losing a recruiting battle? I remember the anguish over AP. Oh, let me think about this. David Warren in 1997 was bad, really bad. That was Earl Campbell's nephew, and he was the number 1 prospect in the country. He was a defensive end. He was from John Tyler. It was Texas fans didn't handle that well, and it was kind of pre-internet, and yet I still saw it on the internet. Look, Ryan Paralou's, it might have to be Ryan Paralou. There's never been another Ryan Paralou. It wasn't devastated. It was angry. They were angry. I can remember that in 2005, and I told this story before, Colt McCoy's dad, Brad, called me up on signing day. I was like, hey, Catch, Paralou signed yet? And I was like, yeah, no, he signed. He signed with LSU. And I was like, oh, okay. That was kind of the gist of the phone conversation. Mac calls me out later in the day and claims in front of other reporters that I called Brad McCoy out and tried to talk his son into not going to Texas or something. And I was like, what? Mac, you just made that up. And I will fully have this conversation in front of all of these people if you want to. And Mac declined. I was like, Mac, he called me. Do you want to have the conversation in front of everybody? Because I will. Mac and I had a weird history because Mac could make me feel like I was his son, like a 6-year-old. Oh, Mac could make you feel. Look, I didn't have a dad. I have no dad. I have a dad, but he's a scumbag and he lives in California, right? So I don't have like that male father-son deal. Mac had this way of like, we weren't even like friends. He could make me feel like I let him down. I'll never forget. I reported on a Jordan Shipley injury. I called one of his players to ask. First of all, I wasn't even asking like, hey, what have you heard? Anything bad? I was just trying to find out. Don't tell me what happened. Did something happen? So if it didn't, I can tell everybody to calm down. This was like early days of the internet. It was like screaming fire in a crowded theater. Anyway, it got back to Mac. I called George Walker and the coach was standing there. Mac pulls me aside. He was just like, oh, man, he just gave me this talking down to like, oh, you're just such a letdown. You're such a disappointment. And I was just like, oh, damn, I'm sorry, Mac. But as I got a little bit older, it wasn't as easy to manipulate me as a younger version of myself was. And yeah, that day I wasn't taking shit from Mac. But that day, Texas fans were so mad. We had Ryan Perrilloux on the front page, and Texas fans were demanding that we take Ryan Perrilloux off of the front page. Now, were there other recruits that they were devastated to lose? I mean, Brockermeyer and Quinn Ewers. I mean, you can make a case that Quinn Ewers got Tom Herman fired. I would not make that case, but it didn't help. I still think it's Perrilloux. And Texas wasn't even like a finalist for Peterson. That was one of those, like, over the course of a year, there's a lot of anguish and stuff. But at the end, A&M fans were probably more disappointed than Texas fans. A&M thought they were going to get Peterson. Texas fans knew they weren't going to get that guy. If they were paying attention. Money B, I did. I really did. I didn't say, that's probably not a direct quote, but I was like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this, Mac? You want to do this here? You want to have this conversation here? Because he called me. And if you want to have the conversation here, I'll tell everybody in this entire class or we were on the 8th or 9th floor of Belmont, right? Or the 9th floor. I was like, we were on the side, like not where they normally do it. That year they were doing some construction or something. And they had us move to the other side of the press availability area. So I all had to sit these round tables instead of like at a dais, where he's like sitting up at a podium with a back. It wasn't like that. We were all sitting at tables. Hey man, the whole UT media was there. Ask Kirk. I don't know if they remember. It was very awkward. He flat out in front of everybody in January of 2005 said that I called Brad McCoy up and tried to talk Colt out of signing with Texas. So preposterous. It was weird because it was like, well, I did actually talk to Brad McCoy today. How do you know that? I don't know. Brad must have told him. I don't know what Brad told him, but yes, Money B, when I called Mac, because Mac, think about what that is in front of my peers. He basically was claiming that I was like dirty and underhanded and non-professional. And I wasn't going to take that from him or anybody. So yeah. Now, Mac, the last time Mac, let me tell you, this is the God's honest truth. Mac and our relationship changed. I think it was in 2007. It was a Monday. And he was walking to the Monday press conference. And I just happened to be walking. Like, it was just one of these things every once in a while, because of where they would make us park, I would have to go through the football facility, cut through to get to the side of the stadium to get into the elevators to go up to the 9th floor. And so every once in a while, it felt like every goddamn week, but every once in a while I'd run into Mac on the walk in, and we would shoot the bull sometimes. Sometimes we wouldn't. Sometimes we would. It'd be like Bill Little, Mac Brown. Sometimes Bianco was there. Sometimes a player would be there. It was very casual, right? We're just walking to the elevator. Sometimes we all ride the elevator up together. It's not a big deal whatsoever. I mean, it would have been a bigger deal if it had been like, no, I'm riding this elevator. Wait for the next one. It wasn't like that, right? It was much more casual. Everything's way more low key and like less stressful than that. So Mac and I are walking in, and Mac had been listening to Aaron Hogan's sports talk radio show that day. And he had heard me. So as we're walking in, Mac is like, hey, Catch. And he started offering me opinions on my style of doing radio. And, oh, Catch, you got to be careful. You can't, no, I don't remember the exact language, but he was basically saying that I was saying like provocative things, and I needed to watch myself, and that I need to be mindful of kind of like what he was thinking and kind of like how it would impact the university and stuff like that. And it occurred to me that day that I was like, oh man, the fuck is Mac doing listening to this stuff on a Monday during the season? Right? Like, it dawned on me. I was like, Jesus, he heard the show. We were just talking about Mac. Mac is listening to sports talk radio in the season. What are you doing, Mac? And the other thing is like, oh, Mac was a little bit scared of me. It was weird. He was scared of me. And like, suddenly I was on the radio, and he was letting me know like I was a different animal to him. And then the next year I was on the radio with my own show, and like all of the little interactions that used to take place between me and Mac in the first, I don't know, 8 years that I knew Mac just changed. Like, we never had he never talked about the radio to me ever again. He never gave me advice. From that moment on, that was the last little conversation that we ever had. Never happened again. I really became like an adversary and somebody that he was, I think, afraid of. And, you know, I don't know what to say. But yeah, Mac and I had, I'll tell you, man, Mac cursed me out on the phone a number of times. He thought I said some shit about Derek Strait one time. He just, cursed me out. And I was like, Coach, I didn't say that. This is what I said. It wasn't that. It was way worse. All right. Let me see. I'm just looking. Is there anything else? All right. We've been basically going an hour. You know what I got to do? The Nagy thing. I'm not bailing yet. We gotta talk about the Nagy thing. I know I've rambled. I'll ramble some more. I don't care. Real quick though, this one cracks me up. One of our sponsors.
This summer, when the sun scorches and sanity is one sweat beat away from collapse, a hero rises. Specs, your cathedral of cold cans, your oasis of cool.
Your oasis of cool. So look, Jim Nagy was doing an interview. I think it was yesterday. I've just been all over the place today. I met somebody for breakfast, and then we had a meeting at 11. I had an article to post, and then we've been answering emails, and I didn't get the video put into the system. But Jim Nagy, OU general manager, did an interview yesterday. And inside the interview, that one of the things that he admits is that what they're trying to do, he's like, look, we're out here, like everybody, we're evaluating guys you find a 5-star. He's like, but if you find a 5-star and that guy's being recruited by Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas, maybe you need to go find a different 5-star. What we're doing at Oklahoma is we're finding the 3-stars that we've evaluated as 5-stars. I swear to God. I swear to God, that's what he said. And then and they're not being recruited by Texas, Georgia, and Ohio State. We got to go get them. And he wasn't saying they weren't going to go get 5-stars. He wasn't saying we're not going to go get big-time prospects. What he was saying, though, is that part of the OU brand is this concept of Moneyball. It is, we got to go find value for the guys that we're looking for. And you know what? Maybe there's no financial value in these 5-stars. But what was really interesting about it is this notion, this suggestion that they're finding 3-stars, that they're evaluating exactly the same as 5-stars. What are we doing? Who is that? Who is that? That does not exist. That OU, if OU fans think that me calling a prospect a super blue chip is a made up thing, well, then you know what I'm going to say in response? You know what is a made up thing? This notion that you evaluate and find a 3-star who you are giving the same grade as a 5-star. That does not exist. It does not. What it is, let's just stop for a second. Every school in the country is looking for the same thing. Every school in the country is sending their scouts and their coaches. If you put those two words together, they're either couches or scouches. And you put those two things together, everybody's looking for it. Everybody's got their guys. Oh my God. The vanity on these coaches, they all go into high schools. I've done it too. The thing is, I admit that I have vanity. I admit my vanity. In fact, I admit that I'm aware of my own vanity to such an extent that I use it, I weaponize the anti-vanity, right? What do I tell you? Sometimes going to scout a guy is the worst thing that you can do because your opinion of that in-person moment can be clouded because you spent the time to go do it and maybe you saw something bad or something that was an outlier and you just convince yourself that that's the way. Vanity. All these coaches think they walk into high schools, they can find somebody, they can turn them. They all think they're 3-stars or 5-stars. What will Sark say? They thought they signed a 3-star. And they'll say, we wouldn't have taken a guy if we didn't think he was going to be a starter for us. They do it all the time. They do. They just took this Matthew Golden guy in the portal, a quarterback. They didn't take that guy because they think he can be a starter. Sometimes you take guys and you don't. Not every guy is the same. Not every defensive tackle they recruit is Justice Terry. The notion that you can, and the thing is, nobody, not even the Gary Pattersons and the Charlie Strongs of the world, who in small doses, and even you probably have to put Jim Harbaugh in this as well. What can happen, and I will not dispute that this is a possibility, schools in really short windows of time, think Michigan a couple of years ago, think there's not a lot. You can build with the 3-stars, get them all at a development. Charlie Strong, Gary Patterson. They didn't win national championships, but Charlie Strong at Louisville, Gary Patterson at TCU. If you wanted to go even further back, you'd look at a guy like Bill Snyder, although completely different, and JUCO and just different. It's hard to win a national championship that way. Isn't that the bar? That's what we're talking about. That's what this show's about. The show's not about winning 8 or 9 games and going to the Alamo Bowl. It has been. It has been. But the conversations that we're talking about are winning championships. Presumably, that's what Jim Nagy's talking about at Oklahoma. There's just no such thing as like this secret pile of 3 stars that exist that they can find that nobody else can find. They make magic grits at Oklahoma. In their kitchen, they're able to cook grits faster than every other self-respecting person in the South is able to cook their grits. I'd be very worried if I was an OU fan. Because what he's telling you is we got to go do the thing that nobody else is doing. What he just described isn't happening anywhere. Other than like Michigan kind of did it with Jim Harbaugh. Certainly not sustained. Point it out to me. Where's the example of the program right now that is winning national championships by finding 3 stars that they've evaluated as 5 stars? It's not happening. And Jim Nagy just went and did an interview and said that's their mission. That scared the crap out of me if I was an Oklahoma fan. They're saying, so in the most competitive conference in America, we've got to go do the thing that has not yet been proven able to be done at this level. It is the great, amazing thing about what Oklahoma is admitting that they're doing. It's what I've talked about for months. I'm a proponent of it. I just didn't think it would be Oklahoma where we would see it happen. I love what Oklahoma, in theory, is trying to do. And nobody who's watched these shows could argue that I'm not. I'm a proponent of go find a guy with an extensive scouting background, like he has at the Senior Bowl. Let him comb for talent, find small margins, and you know what? You can build a program that can win some shit. But I mean at Texas Tech and Baylor. I don't mean if you're Northwestern that you can take that approach and beat Ohio State and Oregon. It definitely doesn't mean that in the SEC that Arkansas or Mississippi or pick anybody who's not named Alabama or Georgia or LSU. Who's winning without a bunch of badass recruits? It's not happening. And look, I'm not trying to get OU fans mad at me. I am talking about what the man said. And what the man said was they have to go find 3 stars that they are evaluating as 5 stars. And they've got to go get those guys. And then they have to win. And by winning means beat Georgia and Texas and Bama with a bunch of guys that they have secret powers to scout. That everybody else in America has missed. But them. I mean, good luck. Good luck. Jay Lee, $5 says, speaking of Terry, I saw a recent video of Terry and Lance side by side. Both are listed at 6'5", but Lance is at least 2 inches taller. Dude will be huge. Lance is a freak, man. And Lance is a guy, another guy that I was the first last year to say that dude's a 5-star. Everybody caught up, man. Everybody caught up. I get right every once in a while. I'm wrong too all the time. But his brother was one of the best defensive linemen in the SEC. Lance is just a different animal than Landon. And Landon has ended up being a guy that could have started at Texas. So I can't wait to see what happens. Look, Pete says definitely the football version of Moneyball. It is. And I'm not mad at them trying. Look, the thing that I would say is that I don't know what their options are. They can't out Georgia, Texas, and Alabama. Georgia, Texas, and Alabama. And everybody in the SEC kind of tries to do that. Oklahoma is trying to do it differently. And I applaud that. I'm only acknowledging the difficulty of the assignment. If they pull it off, I swear to God, I will not come on this show and act like I did not say what I've said today. I will. Jim Nagy for the Dallas Cowboys, please. You guys act like when Lincoln Riley was doing the thing at Oklahoma that I wasn't here singing Lincoln Riley's praises. You guys act like I wasn't able, while kind of a scumbag and enabling bad human beings part of the time, that Bob Stoops wasn't a great coach, Hall of Fame coach. You guys live in y'all's feelings as fans. I got no problem giving compliments when compliments are due. If Oklahoma pulls this off, man, I'll do a special where I'll put clown makeup and costumes on. I will sit up here in a clown costume and I'll go, you know what actually exists? I'll honk my nose and everything. I'll say, you know what exists? 3 stars that are 5 stars. Had no idea. Who knew that the Kennesaw states of the world were taking on the 5 stars all these years? I'll do it. If Oklahoma finds a way through this to out Alabama, Georgia, and Texas, I will even have a contest. I will have a contest on Twitter. I will let Oklahoma fans pick the clown costume. The makeup, the wig. Do I bring a horn and squeeze it? Pete wants me to bring out the rabbit suit. My daughter does not. Jay Lee for $2 says, what is OU going to do with all their money? He says, I ask because those 3 stars are not going to say are saving them money. Jay, what's interesting is what I wonder about Oklahoma is what are they going to have outside of their revenue sharing money? Texas has really been planning for the last 24 months at creating a post-settlement world where they're still able to dominate in NIL and what goes to the roster without it getting rejected by Deloitte. And it's in the name of corporate sponsorships. That deal that came out last week about Learfield and the Texas One Fund and kind of the merging of these two things to create this marketing agency to better aid the players to find these corporate deals. That's the future. And let me find this. I had a quote. This was really interesting. I put this in an article that I wrote. Matter of fact, I'll end the show on this today. I think this is really interesting, though. Felix Ojo's agent did an interview with Front Office Sports Today. It's a podcast. I saw this link. You know, you pull up your phone and you go to that generic browser and it pops up these aggregated stories. This was one. I clicked on it. I wouldn't have otherwise seen this. And his agent, Rashad Phillips, did an interview with this podcast, Front Office Sports Today. And he was talking about Felix's recruitment and what the impact of the House settlement had on Felix's situation in particular, but it was less Felix specific and more generic that I found these comments to be interesting. So Rashad Phillips said, quote, some numbers went down overnight based on the House settlement. In Felix's case, tech stayed the same. So he did not lose anything, and that eventually won out for Felix. Hold that thought. We're going to circle back around. Quote, you have to have a really, okay. He said this kind of weird. I'm sorry. You have to really have a good GM and staff to really be able to manage that money. The rules changed overnight in June and when the House settlement was signed. So if you were not prepared for that, you are behind already. We'll start with that last comment first. That's the one that really stood out the most to me because that goes to what I was just talking about with Texas in the last 24 months. They've been anticipating this. This announcement of this affiliation with Learfield and everything that they've been working to is for this post-settlement world. Not every program is doing this. Not every program will be ready in December to weaponize the Death Star in a way that truly is able to carry a program that wants to win a national championship. That's what Texas is trying to do. I think it remains to be seen. Oklahoma was struggling pre-settlement. Well, they won't struggle spending their settlement dollars. The revenue sharing, no problem. But what are they doing? What are they able to create beyond that $15 to $17 million that they'll have from the revenue stream share? Once that's spent, what does their program look like? And what they've been telling us is that they don't have a lot of money. And that's not what Texas is trying to do. Texas is not recruiting the same caliber of player. They're not trying to find this. Their goals are different. What Jim Nagy said about Oklahoma, that is not Steve Sarkisian's mission statement. It probably gives you an indication of where they both think they stand in this new arms race going into 26 and 27 beyond. All right, guys, we will be back. Look, if Jamarian Carlton commits to Texas, we'll be back live. Yes, we will. Longhorns look like they made some ground. I'll just say this. I've heard that Texas, Sukumel's like there's been some reports that the money's been increased on the Texas side. Maybe because they've lost some other recruits. I'm going to tell you right now, if Jamarian Carlton commits to Texas and we do a show in 3 hours, I will not tell you that I think he plays right away next year. That's not who I think he is. I think he's really good. I think he's got a great chance to be a future first or second day guy in the NFL. And his physical profile is awesome. Awesome. These guys turn into NFL players at like 70% rates. 5-star rates for 4 stars with his profile. Crazy. But I don't think he's a guy that plays in 2026. And if the idea is that you've increased your money to get him, I don't know if that's the best way to spend money. Plenty of time for that conversation. If he commits to Texas again, we'll be back live for that very moment. Guys, thanks for watching. Massive crowd for us today. I'm looking in the Restream studio, 1,300 as we go, watching on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and wherever the hell you guys watch these streams. It's all not on YouTube. It's all of them combined. But thanks for watching. We'll do it again soon. You know what? Because I should. Because I don't want Chad. The thing is, hold on, I'm having technical difficulties. I'm going to end the show. You guys have a great one. Later.